You are watching a review on the Yen Madame channel. Remember to follow and hit the bell to get notified of new videos. Now, let's get into the video. Let's take a look. This is Tan Tianyu, a genuine White Lotus green tea, with supreme manipulative skills and a master's technique in playing pitiful. He always has to pretend to be poor, miserable, and pitiful to win his lover's heart. Of course, that's not his true nature. This is Tan Tianyu's lover, named Su Jang. He is currently the CFO of a foreign company. He is a straightforward, cold person. He's as cold as ice to everyone. It's not that he doesn't have feelings, but his rationality has more control over his body than the average person. To put it bluntly, he has an extremely high IQ, but his EQ is almost non-existent. The fact that these two could get together and end up in the same bed like this is all thanks to Tan Tianyu's efforts. That's not to say Su Jang doesn't love Tan Tianyu. He loves him very much, but he's clueless. He just doesn't know how to express the love in his heart with words. Today, Su Jang's mother came over again early in the morning, while the two were having a sweet, intimate moment. As soon as she opened the door, she immediately started nagging about how everyone around her has grandchildren to hold, but her own son is still with a man. Tan Tianyu, of course, couldn't stand this future mother-in-law. Although he loves Su Jang, he can't tolerate the fact that every other day, his boyfriend's old mother comes over, urging her son to have a baby for her to hold. Although he disliked it inwardly, on the surface, the little White Lotus still pretended to be obedient and offered her tea. Seeing her son remain silent, the woman pushed the topic again, mentioning how she envied others who have grandchildren, while subtly asking her son if he had thought about having a child. As mentioned before, Su Jang is a person with extremely low EQ. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say he's a fool when it comes to social interaction. After hearing his mother's subtle question, the young man, straight as a board, replied, "I'm a man. If you're asking me to give birth, that would be very difficult." He even imagined himself in an apron, with a huge pregnant belly, wondering where the baby would come out from. The woman was completely stunned. She couldn't deal with her son. It was all because of the one who always acted obedient, standing in the back. She was extremely dissatisfied with the little green tea, who had stolen her son from her. But then she suppressed her anger, stood up, and said with fake regret, "This young Xiao Yu is very well behaved, gentle, and elegant, full of charisma, and so understanding. If only he were a girl." Tan Tianyu, a master of playing the victim, scratched his cheek slightly and gave a forced smile without saying a word. But inside, he was cursing up a storm. If this old lady were mute, everyone would be happy. But he didn't have to stay angry for long. His clueless boyfriend immediately sighed and said, "I'm gay. Did you forget, Mom? If Xiao Yu were a girl, we wouldn't have ended up together." There was even a visual aid on the side. Tan Tianyu in a dress and makeup, wearing high heels, playing a game of chase with him. He might seem clueless on the outside, but his inner world is quite imaginative. The woman was rendered speechless by her son and was fuming. She was so angry that she hadn't even warmed her seat before she grabbed her bag and left. Tan Tianyu, from behind, couldn't have been happier, cheerfully waving goodbye to the old lady. The main door slammed shut. Tan Tianyu crossed his arms in disgust, thinking, "You're not happy that I'm a man. Well, I think it's a disgrace for Brother Zhang to have a mother like you." Of course, he only dared to think these things in his head, and couldn't say them to his boyfriend. He just glanced at the man, and gently adjusted his crooked tie. That's right, this obedient and gentle demeanor of Tan Tianyu is all an act he puts on. Of course, it's not to marry into wealth, or to eye his boyfriend's company. It's just because he loves Su Jang too much. This man, who gently smiled and said he'd take him to work, is the one he fell head over heels for at first sight. Of course, it wasn't from the very beginning that he pretended this way to get close to Su Jang. It was just the way things unfolded. 3 years ago, at a gathering for people from their hometown, he was captivated by the handsome Su Jang, who stood out like a crane among chickens. At first he tried every way to get close to him, from pretending not to have a car to ask for a ride, to later using the excuse of a professor's assignment to frequently fly from New York to Boston to see him. Initially, he just wanted to pretend to meet him by chance. Over time, he started considering them friends, and giving gifts to get closer. In the end, it escalated to shamelessly clinging to the man. Although Su Jang didn't show any reaction, Tan Tianyu also didn't feel that he disliked him. So, he grew bolder and bolder. Today, when he was alone with Su Jang, a certain someone blushed, and boldly asked where he lived. A young man with an EQ in the negatives like Su Jang, of course, didn't understand the winding words and hidden meanings in that. He just calmly said he rented a place. Tan Tianyu happily asked him, "Is it convenient for me to stop by for a visit?" The man just coldly uttered 2 words. "Not convenient." The refusal was crystal clear. Tan Tianyu was a bit shocked by the blunt rejection, but he wouldn't give up that easily. He didn't know if Su Jang refused to let him visit because there was someone else in the house, or for some other reason. In short, he was determined to pursue this man to the end. That night at the bar, Tan Tianyu's friend, Zhou Fa, advised him to just give up, to stop clinging to a blockhead like Su Jang. But he was just saying that. How could Tan Tianyu ever let that man go? In his eyes now, all the mere mortals out there couldn't even compare to Brother Zhang's toenail, our lovesick boy. Tan Tianyu felt that there were too many stars, nothing special. Only Su Zhang was that moon hanging high above, the one and only in this world. So high that even the poet Li Bai had to look up, unable to pluck it from the sky. Well, then he had even more reason to chase that bright moon, and pluck it down, to hold it in his arms. Zhou Fa teased him, "You want to pluck it? Be careful not to sell yourself in the process." Tan Tianyu downed the liquor in his glass in one gulp. With eloquent conviction, he declared, "If you want to pluck the moon from the sky to see the world, you can't be afraid of the cold and loneliness up there." The principle was sound, but being bluntly rejected at the door too many times, too many fruitless efforts, made Tan Tianyu extremely sad. Until one day, under a sudden downpour and a thunderstorm, one night in Boston, he found an excuse to step into Su Zhang's territory. Perhaps it was because of his small, weak, helpless, and shivering state, at that moment, that Su Zhang let him into his house that time. He kindly gave him a cup of hot coffee, and a warm blanket that smelled of the house's owner. It was at this moment that Tan Tianyu seemed to realize that Su Zhang liked this soft, weak, and pitiful appearance, and so, what was bound to happen, happened. From that day on, he always played the role of a White Lotus green tea, incredibly docile and weak. Though not so fragile as to break at the slightest touch, this persona of his gradually found its way into the other man's heart. Or perhaps, he was the only one who thought so. Tonight, Tan Tianyu and Su Zhang went out to eat with his company colleagues. The three people in front of him were amicable and cheerful on the surface, but deep down, no one knew what malicious thoughts they were hiding, at least for someone as fluent in social skills and the White Lotus disguise as Tan Tianyu. He wouldn't consider them his rivals. He didn't see them as rivals, but someone looked down on him completely. When a colleague asked how he and Su Zhang met, Tan Tianyu smiled and replied that they met while studying abroad in America. A brown-haired fool sitting opposite him heard this, and immediately asked, "You were an international student too? What school did you go to?" Tan Tianyu casually replied, "New York University." The man with slicked back hair rubbed his chin and chuckled. "Oh, that school." His words were brief, but the sarcastic and mocking tone was incredibly strong. After hearing that, Tan Tianyu was startled and realized the bastard in front of him was making a snide remark. He glanced at his boyfriend beside him. Su Zhang was lost in his own world of data and figures. He hadn't paid the slightest attention to the conversation. The red-haired woman named Rui Lei was a discreet and polite person. Seeing the atmosphere growing heavy, she spoke up to smooth things over. "So that means Xiao Yu's school is also in the Ivy League." The Ivy League is a group of the most prestigious universities in the United States, and a place that has produced many talented individuals. It's often referred to by its namesake, Ivy. Someone had offered him a way out, but the arrogant bastard Kevin, who loves to look down on others, wasn't going to let it go that easily. He was still going on about how the little White Lotus's school was nothing special. Tan Tianyu smiled politely on the outside, but inside, he had cursed this dog-faced Kevin countless times. Seeing Tan Tianyu's embarrassment, the other blonde young man at the table, who had been quiet, immediately changed the subject to help him out. But the more they talked, the more awkward the atmosphere became. Every few sentences, Kevin would steer the conversation back to taking a jab at Tan Tianyu. The White Lotus had to maintain his image in front of his lover, so he couldn't say anything back. Tan Tianyu turned to look at his lover sitting next to him. Although he was sitting right there, it felt like there was a distance between them. He didn't fit into the atmosphere, and didn't notice that his young boyfriend was being looked down upon. Tan Tianyu had had enough. If it were any other time, if anyone dared to talk trash like that bastard Kevin in front of him, he would have made that person question their own existence. But in front of Su Zhang, he could only endure it silently, just because he didn't want the image he had built for so long to collapse. It's true that people will do anything for love. The dinner with his colleagues took place in a tense and uncomfortable atmosphere. It was finally over. After saying goodbye to the others, Tan Tianyu linked arms with Su Zhang, and they headed home together. On the way, Su Zhang remained silent, not saying a word, which made Tan Tianyu feel incredibly drained. He decided to speak up and asked, "Brother Zhang, you were so quiet during dinner earlier. What were you thinking about?" Su Zhang could stay silent all day without saying a word, if no one spoke to him, but when his wife asked, he answered immediately, "I was thinking about today's transactions." Tan Tianyu knew it would be something like that. Their first date back then was exactly the same, no different at all. Su Zhang couldn't remember what he was like back then, but Tan Tianyu remembered it vividly. His silly boyfriend, on a date with him, sat there calculating the revenue of the restaurant they were eating at, as if it were perfectly normal. After reminiscing happily about the past, a certain little White Lotus immediately brewed a cup of tea to help with digestion. He got into character instantly, gently rubbing the corner of his eye where there were no tears. He pouted pitifully and said, "Brother Zhang, I feel like that Kevin guy doesn't really like me." Hearing this, Su Zhang frowned slightly, then opened his mouth. Not to comfort his boyfriend or blame Kevin, but just to calmly state, "You're my boyfriend. why should he like you? But like in Suzhong's view, was the kind that involved offering flowers, giving gifts, and stealing his lover away from him, not the normal human kind of liking or disliking. So he thought it was only right that Kevin didn't like his wife. Tan Tianyu thought Suzhong was a straight bamboo pole, completely clueless about romance. But even though he didn't follow his script, just those innocent words were enough to deeply move Tan Tianyu. He tried to hold back his laughter, then happily linked arms with him, the lovers walking home to their cozy nest. I will stay by Suzhong's side forever. After that, he went for drinks with Zhou Fa at a bar, and said just that. Zhou Fa immediately retorted without a second thought, impossible. Tan Tianyu was furious. Why is it impossible? Zhou Fa bluntly exposed the truth. Because your gentleness and obedience are fake. Can you pretend in front of him for the rest of your life? Hearing this, the little white lotus's face fell. But damn it, he was so right, he couldn't argue back. Tan Tianyu recalled that rainy day in America back then. Suzhong, seeing how pitiful he was, let him into his house, gave him hot coffee and a blanket. And then he asked him, I heard them say you're pursuing me. Tan Tianyu blushed and immediately confirmed it. But just as he nodded, the other man doused him with cold water. It wasn't that he was disgusted or looked down on him. He just calmly said, study hard. If you have the energy, go research your specialized field. Don't waste your time on me. At that time, Tan Tianyu had been rejected so many times that he had become numb to it. But thanks to that time, he discovered Suzhong's weakness. That man was extremely averse to physical contact with others. He could feel it every time he got close. But as long as he pretended to be pitiful and brewed a little tea, that man would have no way to refuse him. And that's why, the path of becoming a pitiful, helpless white lotus, forcing himself to have a mouth but unable to speak his mind, began from there. By pretending to be pitiful, he got the chance to be a little closer to Suzhong, and he gradually accepted him into his world. But the more he pretended, the less of a way back Tan Tianyu had. But only when he seemed truly miserable would Suzhong show any signs of caring for him. And this act was like a snowball. The more it rolled, the bigger it got. And the further it rolled, the harder it was to turn back. Now, that snowball has grown so large, it could crush a person. It was constantly weighing down on Tan Tianyu. This love built on pretense, who knows when it will collapse and melt away, evaporating like snow in spring. Tan Tianyu was about to break down. His devil of a best friend, after stabbing him, switched gears to comforting him. It's okay. Who doesn't pretend when they're in love? When the feelings reach a certain point, you'll naturally go back to being yourself. Tan Tianyu looked at his own hands. He himself felt that he and Suzhong would likely have a very hard time reaching that stage. He loved Suzhong, the kind of desperate love where he felt he couldn't live without him. But Suzhong, he lived too rationally. His feelings were never shown on the outside. Many times, Tan Tianyu even thought that he didn't love him at all. It was just that he was too annoyed by his persistence, and since he didn't dislike him, they ended up living together. A love filled with insecurity. A love so deep it felt demeaning. If he just tore away this layer of pretense, Tan Tianyu felt that Suzhong would no longer need him. Their relationship would be like a mirror, shattered, and never to be whole again. At that point, he probably wouldn't be able to live with him anymore, right? Just thinking about it made Tan Tianyu's heart ache to death. Love is painful, but life must go on. After a night of drinking away his sorrows, the next day, Tan Tianyu put on his layer of obedient camouflage and continued his daily life. Today, he had an admissions interview for new students. Tan Tianyu chugged coffee to wake himself up, while reading the stack of documents in his hand. After looking for a while, he suddenly discovered that this parent interview had something interesting, something that could lift his spirits. The interesting thing Tan Tianyu was waiting for had just parked in front of the kindergarten, where he worked. The person getting out of the car was also an acquaintance. It was the one and only Kevin, the one who had mocked Tan Tianyu at that gathering before. As soon as Kevin's wife got out of the car, she started complaining, saying she had never seen a kindergarten that required a parent interview before enrollment. But Kevin thought this was exactly right. He felt that with his status as a social elite, his son should also receive the best education. Therefore, a school interview was perfectly normal. A staff member led the two to the interview room door. Tan Tianyu was already waiting inside. Just as he had hoped, Kevin's reaction upon seeing him was truly amusing. His face was clearly panicked, and he stammered, unable to speak properly. Who would have thought that the person he had just mocked as a phony, a third-rate international student just a few days ago, would now be the one interviewing him at the very kindergarten he was trying to enroll his son in? It's unknown what kind of interview Kevin had with Tan Tianyu after that, but a week later, during a company meeting, he looked like his soul was about to leave his body. Rui Lei immediately pretended to be concerned about her colleague. Kevin, you've seemed really down these past few days. Kevin leaned back in his chair, his face gaunt, looking like he was on the verge of death. It was all due to the torment of getting his son into kindergarten. Rui Lei, just waiting to get the gossip, immediately said, I heard Xiao Yu is a teacher at that kindergarten. Is that right? Kevin gave a strained, forced smile. That's right. Luckily, he was accepted. This was also thanks to Xiao Yu. He praised him on the surface, but in his heart, he was cursing Tan Tianyu for being a disgusting homosexual. He was so miserable, all because of that guy's torment. He had invited him to dinner several times, and was even rejected. It was so humiliating. The most detestable part was that on the surface, he pretended, but in his heart, he held a grudge and plotted against him. Things like their education system isn't Ivy League, and you as a teacher at the school don't meet the standards. In short, blah blah blah, poking at him from all sides. Before criticizing others, it seems Kevin didn't take a look at himself. The first time he met Tan Tianyu, he also gave him a hard time to show his own superiority throughout the entire meal. And now he was complaining that others were giving him a hard time. Thinking about how much Tan Tianyu had tormented him, Kevin was furious. He glanced at Su Zhang sitting next to him. Normally at the company, he was already being overshadowed by him. Now, even his son's schooling was being dictated by his wife. How could Kevin not be angry? In the midst of his anger, suddenly, the outwardly masculine but inwardly catty Kevin noticed that Su Zhang's shirt collar was wrinkled. Kevin, pretending to be helpful, reminded the person next to Su Zhang, "Your collar is wrinkled." Then he asked with feigned innocence, "Doesn't Xiao Yu iron your clothes for you? Your wife isn't doing a good job." But Su Zhang didn't even bother to look at him. He just calmly asked back, "Why should he have to iron my clothes?" Kevin wanted to criticize the man's wife, but Su Zhang didn't play by the usual rules, which left him speechless. Right at that moment, Rui Lei also jumped in, eager to join the gossip harvest. She smiled and asked, "Old Su, do you iron all your own clothes?" Su Zhang nodded and said yes. Kevin, with a life is truly magical expression, chimed in, "For a man at home, having someone iron your clothes for you is a very romantic thing." Su Zhang's hands, which were typing on the keyboard, stopped. After hearing this, he wondered if what that guy said was actually true. It's unclear what his troublemaker colleagues at the company said, but that night when Su Zhang came home, he suddenly took out one of Tan Tianyu's shirts and prepared to iron it for him. He spread the shirt out, recalled Kevin's words, and then picked up the iron. His face was as serious as if he were about to sign a multi-billion-dollar contract. He quickly placed the iron down, and then the inevitable happened. With a few hissing sounds, black smoke rose. His boyfriend's expensive shirt had been burned to a crisp by Su Zhang. The man, ironing for his wife for the first time, felt as if he had been struck by lightning. That evening, when Xiao Yu came home from work, Su Zhang, very honestly, cleared his throat and explained to him, "I burned your shirt while ironing it. I'm sorry." Tan Tianyu acted as if he had received some wonderful surprise. His eyes sparkled as he took the shirt from Su Zhang's hands. "Oh my god, Brother Zhang actually helped me iron my clothes." Xiao Yu is so happy. Tan Tianyu's Su Zhang, for the first time in his life, felt that, for a man at home, having someone iron his clothes for him was indeed very romantic. Romantic, on the condition that you don't burn it. If you're like him, you won't have enough money to buy new clothes, so where's the romance? The next day, Tan Tianyu actually brought his burned shirt to show off to his best friend, Zhou Fa, when it came to his friend whose brain rotted when he fell in love like Tan Tianyu, was at a loss for words. A 10,000 yuan shirt gets burned like that, and you look so happy. You went all this way just to show it off to me. Of course, Tan Tianyu was happy. He was as proud as a child given candy, his head held high as he declared, "Forget 10,000, even 100,000 wouldn't matter." How can that? Compared to Su Zhang ironing clothes for me just once, for 100,000, you could take that money to a club and find a gigolo. He could iron all the curtains in your house for you. Tan Tianyu showed his disgust. "You can go find a boy to iron for you." Zhou Fa was completely fed up with his brain-dead friend. He laughed and said, "Come to think of it, your everyday items, like this shirt, cost 10,000, and Su Zhang still believes you're a dirt poor guy, who can't even afford to rent a room." Tan Tianyu looked at him like, "Are you crazy? Didn't you see the 10,000 yuan shirt that he just casually placed the iron on and burned? How could a person like him tell what's expensive and what's cheap?" Zhou Fa bluntly stated that, from Tan Tianyu's way of talking to the way he dressed, walked, and lived, everything screamed rich, of a wealthy person. But Su Zhang, having lived with him for so long, still didn't notice. That proves he doesn't really pay any attention to you. Tan Tianyu felt like he'd been hit where it hurts. He could only be angry but couldn't argue back. Going to a friend's house to show off his love life only to get stabbed in the heart was too painful. Tan Tianyu ran home to seek the comforting embrace of his boyfriend, but after opening the door, he saw a sight that completely surprised him. His boyfriend was unusually well dressed and put together today. His hair was even lightly styled, making him look devastatingly handsome. Tan Tianyu was drooling, about to lose his mind. While admiring his lover, Tan Tianyu suddenly felt alarmed. He carefully observed his man from head to toe. His neat and elegant clothes were one thing, but his flowing, voluminous hair was clearly professionally done, and styled. It even seemed like he had light makeup and lipstick on. Seeing his lover suddenly dressed like this, Tan Tianyu was shocked. He thought, could this be a sign that he's about to cheat? He anxiously threw himself into the man's arms and asked softly, "Why do you look so different from usual today?" Jang was straightforward. "David told me to be a resident guest for the finance program, so I had to get my makeup done today." Tan Tianyu thought it was normal for someone as talented as Jang to be on the news, but the man himself was very tired of it. He felt that being busy with work and then having to work overtime was very meaningless. He just wanted to research data after work. Hearing this, Tan Tianyu thought, "Oh, that's my boyfriend all right." So many people out there would kill for this opportunity, but when it was his turn, he just saw it as a nuisance. That day, the finance news program indeed aired on television. Jang appeared with an incredibly handsome look, making countless people swoon. The #1 trending topic on Weibo that day was even his name. In the comment section below, the netizens gossiping felt like everyone was losing their minds, about to crash the Weibo servers. David saw the positive reaction from netizens and was very satisfied. During an internal meeting, he praised Jang extensively. He praised him so much that Kevin, sitting on the side, was green with envy. But on the surface, he praised the boss for his foresight and so on. But in his heart, Kevin had cursed this foolish old man, no less than 10 times. He remembered that time before Jang went on the news, he had already objected to David choosing him. He felt that Jang's personality was not suitable for socializing, but that old man David felt that not being good at socializing was no big deal. The important thing was that he was handsome and charismatic, and that was enough. Not only did he praise Jang, but he also bluntly criticized him for being ugly and unsightly, which made him question his own existence. The more Kevin thought about it, the angrier he got. He looked at the handsome Jang sitting next to him and couldn't swallow this anger. He had to think of a way to bring Jang down. That night, the hot search about Jang exploded on Weibo once again. But this time, along with the hashtag fund manager, most handsome was a post from a VIP account, publicly outing Jang as gay on social media. They even posted a picture of him and Tan Tianyu holding hands on the street, as proof. The comment section erupted once again. This time, some people cursed him as disgusting, some expressed regret, and some thought it was no big deal. Everything was blown out of proportion. Jang wasn't only not angry, but he even took this opportunity to tell David to quickly replace him with someone else. Although David tried to persuade him, saying it was no big deal, Jang really didn't want to waste time on that stupid program, so he insisted on withdrawing. David had no choice. His best and most promising employee refused to do it anymore. He had to give up and find someone else to replace him. Kevin's plan to get rid of Jang was successful, but the result made him so angry he could vomit blood. As soon as he got home, he cursed his foolish boss. Who would have thought that after getting rid of Jang, he would still replace him with someone else, and not choose him? Even though he was the most experienced person in the company, it was so unfair. This is what you call karma. When you live a life that even dogs despise, you know what's up. A petty person always thinks they're right. After sabotaging Jang and not getting the desired result, Kevin was still annoyed, thinking Jang was an ungrateful person. Back when he first joined the company, he had been helped so much by him, but now he was competing with him for resources. Truly a white-eyed wolf. Kevin was so angry he became foolish. With a despicable look on his face, he bit his nails, thinking of a way to make someone else suffer. His wife looked at her useless husband and was completely exhausted. She couldn't understand why her husband kept trying to harm others, especially when their own son's schooling depended on that person's boyfriend's favor. Hearing Tan Tianyu's name, Kevin immediately came up with a new plan. He smiled vilely and said, "Tell me, if we publicize the sexual orientation of Jang's boyfriend, do you think the school over there will still let him work there?" Truly, cowards can only think of dirty tricks. Sooner or later, karma will get them. The sinister plot of this side character concludes this episode here. Stay tuned for the next developments in the next video.